Hi, welcome to Forbes Let's Talk, the insurance edition. My name's Nicola Dawn and I'm one of the insurance partners at Forbes. And each podcast I'll be taking you on a journey with one of our guests through their work, life and career. Hi, and welcome to this month's edition of Forbes Let's Talk, the insurance edition podcast. And this edition, I'm very excited to welcome Siobhan Hardy, who has a very long and interesting career with Forbes. So it's really exciting to talk to you today, Siobhan. How are you? Have you had a good weekend?
I'm good, thank you. Yes, I had a fantastic weekend. Thank you very much.
Good.
Yeah, visitors from Canada that we've been entertaining. So it's been very good to have strangers from another country that wanted to come and explore our lovely country. They're actually from a little town north of Toronto called Bolton. Uh-huh. So they wanted to come and see what our Bolton looked like. So we showed them round as tourists around Bolton in Greater Manchester.
Was Bolton in Manchester different to Bolton in Toronto?
Much bigger apparently. Theirs is very, very small. They were fascinated by the fact that we've got a town hall that's over 150 years old. Their town was actually founded about 200 years ago, but obviously Bolton in Greater Manchester has been around for a lot longer than that, so they found it very fascinating. And I've never been a tourist in Bolton before, although I've been to it many times, so it was quite interesting to see it through tourists' eyes.
Excellent. I've been to a few inquests in Bolton, but I've never done it as a tourist.
Right, okay. Yeah, never before for me either. But
and did you make those Yorkshire puddings for them as well?
I did, yes. Cooked them a Sunday dinner and made Yorkshire puddings, which is another typically English thing they wanted to do, as well as going to the local pub. So the pub was the easy bit. And the Yorkshire puddings came out beautifully, I have to say.
Good stuff. I wouldn't expect anything less.
Yes.
Well, I've been very excited about getting you on the podcast because you've had so far, because you're still shooting on with it, a really interesting career, and I believe it's your anniversary at Forbes shortly.
It is 32 years this month. In Forbes, yeah. So I joined as an assistant solicitor 32 years ago, and working in a sort of small but already on the up growing defendant insurer team, based in just one office in Blackburn, and obviously it's grown to the organisation and department that we see today, which is a lot bigger than it was then, and I've loved all my time here. It's been
brilliant. That's fantastic. And still going strong, and still in touch with lots of our clients. Absolutely. And doing lots.
Oh yeah, I've still met people in the first few weeks and months of coming to Forbes that became friends, and I'm still in touch with, and we're still acting for those clients. So it's good.
Good. It's good to have those relationships. And how has it been overseeing that expansion of the independent insurance department? Because we're huge, absolutely huge now, and obviously I'm based over in Manchester. Yeah. But you had a big hand in the Leeds office and growing that, and still very involved in the Leeds office as well.
So as I mentioned just before, we were just one office in Blackburn, and now Manchester, Leeds, and growing, and it's been fantastic to be part of that, to be helping the two then partners, Martin Crabtree and Peter Gold, as they developed that journey, and then to lead it myself at one stage as well when I was head of the insurance team. So it's been really wonderful to see it, and to see the number of clients, the geographical spread, because we were just acting for clients, mainly local authorities around the northwest, and now of course it's the length and breadth of the country. So
it is, and we've got the local authority clients who have been with us for many years, who we really love acting for. And we're now having commercial entities we act for as well, because obviously we've got all of the employment teams that we cross-sell with and things. So it's really exciting times at the moment, isn't it? I know when we have our insurance partners meetings and we go around and talk about everybody's different specialisms and what they're doing, it's really exciting, and it's growing, which is great.
It really is, yeah. A much bigger organisation, much bigger team than we were back 32 years ago. So that's fantastic.
So let's take you back 32 years ago. Wow. So you joined when you'd finished your articles.
I did, yes. I did my articles in Liverpool, and then was looking to move away from the city, sort of thinking that might have kids at one point and didn't want to be sort of living in that area at the time, closer back to my roots in West Yorkshire, so that family were nearer if children did come along, which they did eventually. So that was partly my thinking. Also looking for a firm that I could be in at the beginning of and play a real part in its growth, and hopefully be a partner one day. I was in my early 20s. I wasn't expecting partnership straight away, but I did hope that I would be joining a firm where I could be part of the plan and the journey, and that's what happened. So,
it did, and partnership came fairly quickly in the journey as well.
A few years later. I became the first, not the first, the only at the time. There had been a female partner before, but the only female partner. Very proud to be the only female partner at the time, although even more proud that there are many, many more of us now. Or I'm no longer a partner, of course, but that there are lots of female partners now. So
there are. We were just doing a count up before we came on, and I think over half the partnership now is female, which is incredible. So we are leading the way in terms of the gender equality, I think, in the Northwest, which is good to know. And I believe you looked after and trained our current managing partner as well.
She was one of my trainee solicitors, as they became called. So Pauline was a trainee solicitor with me in Leeds when I was fairly early in my time over in the Leeds office, and Pauline came and did a 6-month stint with me there, and I could see then that she was going to go places, obviously, and she's become the wonderful managing partner that she is for us today. So I feel very, very pleased to have played a small part in her development.
I'm sure she'll say a large part. You're an inspiration to so many of us as well, in terms of leading and being a female leader as well, and really cracking on. And as I said, we say insurance is just growing so much, and it must have changed so much in terms of how we do the work over the last few years. Particularly, I think there's been a lot since COVID as well about going paperless and things like that. And
we were on that journey anyway, weren't we, before COVID? But COVID sending us all home to work for a period of time really did fast track that idea that everything is going to be paperless. I said we'd already got the systems in place, so it wasn't difficult for us to do it, was it, when we all got sent home? But when I first started, you had paper files, and a large or complex case that might have been going on for a few years might be, you'd measure it in sort of inches of depth of paper rather than anything else. I mean, they were huge, and some were several folders thick, and you'd have filing cabinets off them, and rooms were dominated by a series of filing cabinets around the room where all your paper was kept. Some people used to pride themselves on how many filing cabinets they had, because it meant that they were very busy lawyers. And it's changed massively. We started doing a paper light, we called it, project several years ago now, to sort of do that transition from having paper to not having paper anymore. And some people found it difficult at first and resisted it, but everybody's used to it now. And technology's improved so much as well, hasn't it? So, the idea of having dual screens, the idea of having a screen at all when I first started, I mean, people kept a team of secretaries going with dictation at the beginning, because there was no way of typing your own reports and letters, because we didn't have that kind of technology on our desks. And so it's changed quite dramatically.
Because because I remember when I first started, just having the fax machine, and that was the new technology first. Before, we weren't using email, we couldn't serve by email, the court wouldn't let us.
Wasn't in the rules, was it?
No, it wasn't in the rules. No. So it's really almost bad how much it's changed and how much technology is developing.
Absolutely, it's a huge change. So instead of banks of secretaries typing away, we all have machines on our desks and do our own typing and reporting and what have you. And the technology's there to assist us, because it produces so much for us, doesn't it, now? It produces templates, but not just that. It produces workflows, so people know what they're supposed to be doing at what stage they're supposed to be doing it. And, that really that's come on leaps and bounds, hasn't it? So,
it has. And has that helped you? Because you do a lot of work with our compliance team at the moment and are responsible for that. Does that help you keep tabs on it? Obviously technology is really, really helpful these days, having technological solutions. We're a big firm, if we're not just a handful of people, so when you're looking at compliance solutions, you've got to have the data behind what you're looking at, to make sure that everybody's doing what they should be doing, that everybody's recording what they should be recording, and if you need to scrutinise that data, you can run reports. So it's a lot easier than it used to be. It's, it feels very old-fashioned now just to be using a spreadsheet for something. An Excel spreadsheet feels very old-fashioned now. You've got all these almost artificial intelligent
solutions now to what we're doing.
No, that's right as well. And I suppose as the firm has grown quite quickly as well over recent years, that sort of thing can help to keep tabs on how it's going and help to grow in a way that's manageable as well.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's vital. It's a vital tool. I think lawyers have to accept legal tech and the benefits it can bring. There are some potential disadvantages as well. You know, we still need to have the person input to sense check data and things. We can't overlook our obligations, so GDPR obligations to protect data and things. You can't have the tech running it all, but
so the AI is not going to take all our jobs within the next.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah,
that's a relief. Got a sausage dog to pay for.
Oh well, absolutely. Yeah, I think your sausage dog is safe. I'm sure. I'm sure she'll be fine. But no, there's going to be for all legal tech can definitely improve the speed and the efficiency with which legal work is done and how lawyers work. There still needs to be a role for the lawyers overlooking at it, and you need to think carefully about how you're using it. There's been a story in the legal press relatively recently about a New York lawyer that used ChatGPT for looking up case law and presented case law that seemed to support his personal injury claim against an airline, it was, and presented it to the judge. And the opposing solicitor looked the cases up, not solicitor, lawyer in America. The opposing lawyer looked up the cases and couldn't find them afterwards. It turns out they were not real, they were completely made up. The lawyer had apparently even asked ChatGPT if they were real cases and was assured that they were real cases, but hadn't gone that next step further and actually looked them up.
Double checked it. Yeah.
And of course, you know, they're being hauled over the coals, disciplinaries, and rightly so, you know. So whilst artificial technology tools can help, there is no substitute for having that legal base of knowledge.
That's
understanding. So I think our jobs are safe.
Our jobs are safe. That's good. That's good. She'll be happy.
Yeah, good.
Reassuring. But it is so interesting. We had some students in from Salford Uni into the Manchester office this morning. They were fantastic, and they were telling us they just finished the third year of the law degree. But we asked them a question about what would law look like in 10 years and what would working in law look like, because that actually, if they train and do their training contract, won't be that long into their career almost. No. But they were coming up with some really interesting things like ChatGPT will be much better refined by then. Perhaps we'll even have lawyers working with it to try and refine it slightly.
Yeah, because it's only as good as the input.
Exactly, only as good as the input and that. But they were coming up with some fascinating things around virtual tech. And apparently at Salford they've got some virtual headsets that they use to practice their muting and all of that sort of thing, which is incredible, which we never had 20 years ago when I was doing my degree. But that sort of thing is absolutely fascinating. And
so instead of going to court, we could all be with a headset, and the judge will also have a headset, and we could all be in a virtual courtroom in the future.
Exactly. And I suppose that 10 years ago we wouldn't have thought that we were doing court hearings on Microsoft Teams.
No, exactly. And again, the pandemic brought that forward, because the courts had to adapt just like the law firms did, and everybody did. But so courts had to allow trials to take place in that way, because otherwise they couldn't go ahead. Nobody could get together in a courtroom. But the wheels of justice have to keep turning. We couldn't just let all the cases backlog. I mean, who knew how long that lockdown was going to last and the pandemic was going to affect us? So, and now hybrid trials still happen. In the world in which we work, the defendant insurer world, I think the tendency has been to go back to court mostly, but still there are times when a witness can be brought in virtually and have some kind of hybrid trial. But maybe in the future, who knows? We'll have some a robo judge dispensing justice. I mean, the Master of the Rolls is looking at technological solutions to the way the courts work, civil and criminal, really. But they're very keen to harness the benefits that this technology can bring. So, the legal world traditionally has moved slowly, but when it comes to new advances and things, but I think this is inevitable. And the SRA, our regulator, is looking at ways of facilitating the use of law tech, having a sandbox where ideas can be tested without you necessarily having the regulatory boot coming down on you for failing to comply with all the rules and regulations because you're testing out some new way of working. So the regulator is keen to see that and accepts that legal tech is here to stay. So watch this space.
Exactly. So for a very traditional profession that moved very slowly over a great number of years, we're making massive advances, aren't
Absolutely.
we?
Yes, yeah, we are. Yeah, and it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be a solicitor, isn't it?
It is really exciting. And speaking of exciting times, at the minute we're going through the graduate recruitment process,
yes.
which is great. So at the time of recording this, we've done our first interviews. We're about to do assessment days are coming up, and you've had some time as training principal.
Oh yeah.
And did you enjoy that? Did you?
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the best bits of my 32 years, really. I absolutely loved looking after the recruitment and the training and development of the trainee solicitors. So I started that role, like I was describing earlier, with the time Pauline Rigby stayed with me as a trainee for 6 months doing one of her seats. That was how I started it. I looked after the trainees as they did their progression through the insurance team. And I moved from that to becoming involved firm-wide with the recruitment and development of them, and then becoming training principal as well, which was so rewarding. And we've got a number of partners now in the practice that I recruited into the firm, that I helped train and develop, and that's marvellous. It really is. We always said when we were interviewing, and I presume you're still doing the same thing when you and Keller are doing the interviewing these days, but we always said that we were looking for the future partners of the firm, and we found many. So it was wonderful to see over the years so many people that I brought into the firm are still here and are thriving and doing so
excellent.
well.
I know we've seen some really exciting talent actually that we're really pleased about. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we've got lots of future partners over the last couple of years.
I'm sure you will. Yeah, and they're wonderful at the beginning of their career. They're so enthusiastic and have all this desire to succeed, and they want to develop their careers, and it's great to sort of harness that and see it come to fruition within Forbes, not just in our department, in the defendant insurer department, but in the firm, in the wider firm, because of course the trainees go all over the place within the practice, don't they? Well, during their training and then when they qualify. So it has really been the most rewarding part of my role. Not that I haven't enjoyed every other aspect as well, client work, client contact, being senior partner of the practice, being managing partner of the insurance team. They've all had their challenges and joys and rewards.
I was going to say, there must be very different challenges as well.
All of them, yes, yeah.
And seeing how everything changed and how you fit into different parts of the business.
Absolutely, yeah. All very different, but all rewarding in their own way. But I will still say looking after the trainee solicitors was the best bit for me.
It is great. I really enjoy this time of year. I think it's great. And going out to the unis and speaking to people and all sorts of things, that's really great, good as well. But it's good and it's enjoyable. But you had some time working with the housing sector as well, didn't you?
I was head of housing for the practice at one stage, really focusing on the defendant insurer side of it and the housing disrepair work at the time. But the firm, we've grown in relation to the work that we do with social landlords, and now it has the work that we do now is dealt with by several different departments. So, but it did come out of those beginnings via the insurance team. I mean, many years ago, like 20 odd years ago. But I certainly enjoyed that. And whilst I was doing that role and trying to develop these other areas and getting other people involved, and obviously Stuart Penswick now leads the sort of the other part of the housing work, but I was a board member for a relatively small housing association at the time, but that was great. That gave me a real insight into the actual workings of it on the ground, so to speak. It's all very well having an understanding of the legal and regulatory stuff that applies to social landlords as it's changed over the years, but to see how that really manifested itself in practice on the ground with other board members and the impact it was having on tenants, that the decisions of the boards were making, and how it all fitted together was fascinating, and really helped me understand the role of lawyers better, and what we can do with clients, how we can work with clients to improve the service that they give to their tenants. So it was a really good opportunity. Which I really enjoyed doing. So yeah, time out of the day job, doing something different that was really helpful. Yeah, helpful to me, but also helpful to the organisation I was.
Well, yeah, because then you have an understanding of how they want their work to be done, and how. Yeah,
they weren't our clients at the time, because I felt that would be a conflict. So this was another housing association that was independent of the work that Forbes were doing, but it certainly gave me an insight into how a housing association works, and what its needs and challenges were, day to day for them as colleagues working on the front line, so to speak, with the tenants and then the tenants themselves. So so it was good. It was really another really interesting aspect of what I've done.
It's just so much. I don't know. I'm just going to go over half an hour easily with everything you've done. You've got
it's been 32 years. So I had to fill it
we
somehow.
Can't do like a minute a year or something like that. But what's next for the next? Well, not the next 32 years, because hopefully you'll be playing golf or doing something else.
Well, I'm currently a consultant within the defendant insurer team, and a very different role to being a partner. I get involved with client relationship work, so making sure the clients are happy with the service that we're providing. I get involved with client development work as well, and tenders and things like that, as well as just being an experienced voice, helping the new partners in the team, and the partners that I've worked with for many years, just sort of understanding what experience I can bring. And
we've been great with me since I've joined.
Nice
it's really nice to
guide.
But I was saying on Ridwan's podcast, the first time I met a lot of the insurance partners was a meal celebrating your 30th anniversary, I think Andrew's 30th anniversary, and Ridwan's 25th.
Absolutely.
And I thought, well, this is the firm that I want to settle into. If people are this happy that they stay for this long, and really yourself has been absolutely imperative in kind of getting the culture and getting to know what it is. And
it sounds like the experience you had at the beginning, and feeling at home and wanting to be in this firm, and you can see your future here, is very like the experience I had 32 years ago. So we pride ourselves at Forbes at being friendly and approachable people, don't we, that are welcoming to colleagues, but also to clients and other stakeholders that we interact with. And I'm pleased that you felt that, just like I did 32 years ago.
Definitely, absolutely, really do. And I get the feeling when we go round, we've recently been to Alarm conference, and you and Chris were at AirMic the week before.
A couple of weeks before that,
it's been busy, and getting round to see everybody and catching up with people. Those events really have an important place in the calendar, don't they?
They absolutely do, yes. So you see people there that you wouldn't necessarily see day to day. You might only see a couple of times a year, because that's appropriate for the work that you're doing with them. But it's a real opportunity to sort of showcase the firm, cement those relationships a little bit more, and it really is important for the development, I think. And we think they're. We feel that they're vital. They really are getting our brand out there, but getting our personalities out there, and bringing younger members of staff, newer members of staff along. The future partners, as we were describing, but getting them along to these events as well, so they can see and meet people and organisations that they wouldn't necessarily meet in their day-to-day, because it's not the nature of the role that they have, but they can come and be brand ambassadors for
exactly.
For
it's really important to get that networking experience quite early on, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we're trying to encourage people to use LinkedIn quite often as well, and get used to using that quite early on in their careers, and then it becomes natural then.
Yeah, although I don't think you need to teach the young ones very much about using social media. They're much better at it than I am, but they've grown up with it, haven't they? So
exactly.
I still sometimes need to speak to my sons about how I use these tools, but it's great to learn from the younger ones coming in. They can teach us stuff just like we can teach them stuff. So it's good. But yeah, it's absolutely important to get the brand out there and to attend these events. So.
And you are good. I mean, you were on Instagram when you went to Australia recently.
Oh, well, I was, yes. Yeah. Yes, I was. I decided that I was going to record my Instagram journey on a big trip that I did to Australia and Singapore. And yeah, you followed my
I
my
did,
journey,
and it was
so,
excellent.
yeah.
It made me very jealous. I think it rained here every day you were in Australia.
And it didn't rain very much at all when I was there. I seemed to be away from the rain. It was, it's the other side of the world, of course, so it was the autumn, winter time there, but we still had pretty good weather. It was funny, actually, because they said to me, so typical weather in England in the summer. I said, we might get 25 degrees. If we're having a heat wave, it might get to 30. And they said, in the summer? Because that's 25 degrees is a coolish winter's
chilly day for them, isn't it?
Concerned. They're all putting jackets on and whatever, so yeah.
And of course you did your big trek to Nepal as well last year for the Forbes Foundation.
Yes, so I raised quite a bit of money, I think, for the Forbes Foundation there, and really was pleased to do it. It's I did it through an organisation that raise funds for children's charities, and you choose your charity that you want the money to go to, and it was absolutely no-brainer that it was going to be the Forbes Foundation, because obviously that's its ethos is to provide money to children and young people that need it. So it was really important to do that. Lots of generosity around the firm and my friendship group and family. People donated, and I went and trekked in the foothills of the Annapurna mountain, which is one of the highest mountain ranges. So it's in the Himalayas, so it's in the same range as Everest. But it's at the other end of Nepal, so I didn't go anywhere near Everest other than flying over it on the way in.
Could you see much when you were flying?
You could see the Himalayas, which was quite stunning. Yeah. So, and the pilot said, those of you on the left-hand side of the airplane can see Everest as we were flying over. So that was interesting, fascinating and spectacular to see all that. But then to actually walk in the Himalayas, I've been on my bucket list. So to go and do something like that, I do like my mountain walking. I like walking in the Lake District here and other parts of the country. But to go to Nepal was quite special.
Yeah, it must have been amazing.
And to be able to raise funds as well at the same time for a really good cause was.
And you've been involved with the Forbes Foundation for a long while, haven't you?
Oh yeah, well yeah, I believe in it obviously.
Totally.
I like to be involved, and we try and do some fundraising through the office and what have you. So yeah, it's.
Well, you were telling me about a really good idea last week about you'd been on another charity event.
Yes,
and they were buying lottery tickets.
They were, and I'm going to pinch this absolutely unabashedly. I'm going to pinch this idea, and so it was a treasure hunt that client organisation of ours had got involved in, a client contact organisation, and. One of the things you had to collect on your treasure hunt was you had to purchase a raffle ticket, which you handed in at the end. And if it becomes a winning raffle ticket, those funds go to the charity that the event was in aid of, which was Leeds Children's Charity. So that was, a great idea, I think. So I think we may have to be doing.
Well, we may
use that in some context or other. So.
But you're not tempted to do the Forbes, the cycling one, the Tour de Forbes.
So we're doing the Tour de Forbes.
Because Ridwan on his podcast was talking about training for that, but I don't think my little legs can get round all those miles on a bike.
I'm not a cyclist; I'm a walker. But
same here.
Yeah, I'm very happy to help with setting up, because they start the Tour de Forbes from the Leeds office, which is where I'm based. And very happy to supply the bacon sandwiches and the coffee to set them on their way in the morning.
Oh, I might come for that bit.
So I'll do that. But no, not the cycling.
I'm
not cycling fit, I should say.
Oh, no.
But there are plenty of people that do, and it's a great event. They've always raised lots of money. I think it's 100 miles in total. I might be wrong, but I think it's 100 miles between the offices. But you don't need to do it all. You could just do one leg, so you could cycle from Blackburn to Preston or whatever. But, those that want to do the whole thing, start in Leeds, cycle over the Pennines and end up...
That sounds tough. I did joke and said I would do the Manchester to Salford leg, which is about like 800 metres.
Yeah, right. It's not even a mile, yeah, so, oh well.
But maybe not. Yeah. And on that note, I think probably with that thought of exercise, I need to go and have a cup of tea. So thank you very much, Siobhan, for coming out. It's been really lovely to chat to you as always.
You're very welcome, Nick. Nice to talk to you too.
Thank you.
Cheers.